Stop me if you've heard this one before, but Nintendo Switch sales are en fuego and absolutely insane right now. We've got updated hardware and software numbers for the system, and more records are being broken every day. And Nintendo was actually asked about the Nintendo Switch Pro, and addresses the rumors in a somewhat telling way, I feel. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm in the middle of a snowstorm right now, and I hope my power doesn't go out or else I will be freezing. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So late last night, we got, of course, a brand new sales report from Nintendo when it comes to the Nintendo Switch and system sales and software sales for the system pertaining up to December 31st of 2020. And there's just some absolutely amazing numbers in here. This is what people should be talking about within the video game industry, because this is actual news and records are being broken. And it's just really weird to me how this sort of stuff just gets swept under the rug for, like, I don't know, the PlayStation 5 controller can scratch your balls. Like, okay, that's cool, but this is actual news here. This is actual fun stuff to talk about. So in this latest financial report, we got the following information. The Nintendo Switch is now at 79.87 million units sold worldwide, and that is of December 31st. So obviously we have eclipsed 80 million sold. When we break it down from the standard Nintendo Switch to the Nintendo Switch Lite, the standard Nintendo Switch has sold 66.34 million units worldwide, while the Nintendo Switch Lite has sold 13.52 million units worldwide. Now, obviously a big story from this is that the Nintendo Switch has officially outsold the Nintendo 3DS and 3DS family of systems. We sort of alluded to this in the last information that we got from Nintendo because it was pretty much a foregone conclusion, but now we have concrete evidence that the Nintendo Switch is outsold the 3DS and the 3DS family of systems. And you got to remember, like, the 3DS was a budget system. The most it ever was $250 when it first came out, and I was one of those suckers who got it on day one. But obviously there was lots of cheaper iterations of this system, so to see the Nintendo Switch, a more expensive system, selling better than the 3DS, which, I mean, let's be realistic, the 3DS had a very long life cycle and it had a lot of games for it, it's just absolutely amazing to me. Now, what's also interesting about this information is the fact that the Nintendo Switch has actually done better in a quarter than the Nintendo Wii ever did in a quarter, with the Nintendo Switch selling 11.57 million units in the last quarter, which is higher than the Nintendo Wii ever achieved. And you gotta remember, the Nintendo Wii was like a huge phenomenon. It was like on Ellen, your grandma was playing it and playing the Wii bowling and stuff like that. So to see an actual video game system, a dedicated video game system, do this well, especially in the current economy and the current real world situations, is just absolutely amazing to me. It's not a question of if the Nintendo Switch will hit 100 million units sold, it's a question of when. And I think it's very realistic to think that the Nintendo Switch will exceed the 100 million units sold worldwide in the year of 2021. I mean, everything is just going in a snowballing momentum for them, and they have not slowed down with anything. Of course, you can't sell hardware if you're not selling software, and this is just absolutely ridiculous to see some of these numbers when you especially compare it to other game sales of other exclusive games on other systems. Like, it's mind-blowing. How is this not like the biggest topic in video gaming right now when you look at the tie-in ratio for first-party exclusive games on the Nintendo Switch comparative to other systems? But let's go over some of these astronomical numbers, and I'll put things into perspective for you guys as well. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still the best-selling Nintendo Switch game with over 33 million units sold worldwide, which that's just ridiculous. But what's even more ridiculous is in a span of roughly 9 months, Animal Crossing New Horizons has sold over 31 million copies in 9 months. In less than a year, this game has sold 31 million plus copies. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I did not buy this game. It's not a game that I was really interested in playing. I played the Animal Crossing games on the GameCube and the DS. I loved them then. It's just something I moved on from. But to underestimate the phenomenon of Animal Crossing New Horizons is ridiculous. I'm going to say the word ridiculous a lot in this video because these numbers are literally ridiculous. So shout outs to Animal Crossing. It's going to be one of the greatest selling games of all time. It already is one of the greatest selling games of all time, but it just captured a whole new imagination of different people who probably didn't own a Nintendo Switch to pick up a Nintendo Switch when this game came out. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, 22.85 million. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 21.45 million. Pokemon Sword and Shield, 20.35 million. Super Mario Odyssey, 20.23 million. So those are the games that have sold over 20 million on the Nintendo Switch thus far. So to kind of put things into perspective for you guys, we're going to take a look at the best-selling PlayStation 4 exclusive game, and that's a system that sold, of course, well over 100 million units, and that game was Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, and that sold roughly 20 million copies, and that was the highest overall selling first-party exclusive game for the PlayStation 4. So the Nintendo Switch already has, what, 6 games that have superseded that? Like, it's just absolutely crazy when you put things into perspective like that, and you look at what the other companies are doing as far as software sales are concerned, and then you look at Nintendo and it's just like, moving right along, I want to highlight a few other things. Super Mario Party is at nearly 14 million units sold, which is, I don't know, that's ridiculous to me. It's not a good game. Splatoon 2 is at 11.9 million units sold. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 9.82 million units. Why are people buying that game? It's not a great game. Luigi's Mansion 3, 9.13 million units sold. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, 8.32 million units sold, and that game just came out in September. Super Mario Maker 2, 6.91 million units sold. Now, to put some things into perspective once again for you guys, looking at those games, obviously a game like New Super Mario Bros. U has no business selling that well. But to once again put things into perspective for you guys, Final Fantasy VII Remake sold about 5 million units at last report. Now, obviously, since then, it has gone up. I believe this last report was from like August of 2020, but let's say they sold another 1.5 million units sold, so 6.5 million units. Final Fantasy VII got outsold by New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, by Super Mario Maker 2, by Luigi's Mansion 3. Like, this is craziness. This is absolute craziness. You've never seen such strong IPs come out of the gate and sell these crazy of numbers. Nothing has been like this since the Nintendo Wii, and I think this is far more impressive when it comes to software sales than the Nintendo Wii. Paper Mario the Origami King sold over 3 million. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is nearing 3 million as well. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit sold 1 million, and that was probably one of the biggest scams Nintendo's ever done, because they knew what you were going to do with that. You were going to play it a few times, and then you were going to put it in a box, and then it was going to sit in your game room, much like mine has ever since I got it. But these software sales are just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, I can't even think of another word. I need a thesaurus in order to get another word for the word ridiculous, because this is just unprecedented stuff. And like I said, the fact that a lot of this isn't being talked about in the mainstream gaming media, and that these aren't the big topics, these records being broken when you compare apples to oranges with some of these games. Yes, they're different styles of games, but on a system that sold well over 100 million units sold, you would expect higher sales of certain games, and Nintendo just absolutely crushes some of these software sales when comparative to the PlayStation 4. Now, there also was the outlook for the upcoming year when it comes to Nintendo Switch games, and it looks pretty bleak, but that's sort of what Nintendo has been doing as of late. They haven't been announcing games. They haven't really had third-party companies announcing games right up until they're ready to start talking about them and showing them, and with a quick turnaround of a couple months to where the game is shown and then the game is released. So I don't know if third-party companies are also on board with that mantra that Nintendo is doing right now, but it seems to be working. When you look at a game like Monster Hunter Rise, that game was announced, showcased, and then it's like, hey, it's coming out in a couple months, and now that's one of the most highly anticipated games, not only for the Nintendo Switch in 2021, but arguably for all consoles in 2021. It's going to be a huge hit. Now, piggybacking off of the future software for the Nintendo Switch and the upcoming software, we also have to keep in mind potentially future hardware coming to the Nintendo Switch, a Nintendo Switch Pro or a Nintendo Switch Revision, as you will. Now, obviously, Nintendo is doing stuff with things like a Mario-themed Nintendo Switch, a Monster Hunter-themed Nintendo Switch, but as far as an actual revision is concerned, that's sort of up in the air. Many of us, myself included, believe that this is going to be a reality. It'll probably be coming out in 2021, but somebody at this investors meeting actually asked about new hardware coming to the Nintendo Switch in 2021. Now, this is being translated by Takahashi Mochizuki, who works for Bloomberg, and the question was as follows: is there a new model coming this year? To which the answer was not planning to make an announcement anytime soon, as we have a Mario revision in February and a Monster Hunter revision in March. Now, upon first glance, I'm sure a lot of people will take away from this, oh, well, this means that there is no Nintendo Switch Pro, but you really have to look at the wording and, more importantly, the timing of this. Obviously, Nintendo is releasing a brand new Mario-themed Nintendo Switch and a Monster Hunter-themed Nintendo Switch. Do you think they're gonna talk about a Nintendo Switch Pro before those systems come out? Like, no, no shit, Sherlock. Of course, there's nothing to announce at this time. You're not making an announcement at this time because you want those systems to sell, but you gotta look at the timing of this. One system comes out in the month of February, one system comes out in the month of March. Obviously, we still have the whole rest of 2021. So if in the month of May or April, towards the end of April, then you want to start to talk about revised hardware, that would make a lot more sense. You have nothing to announce at this time, much like you had nothing to announce about a Nintendo 3DS revision that ended up being announced the next day. Remember that with Reggie Fils-Aimé? So I would not look too deep into this comment. I think the wording of it is the most important thing. We're not planning to make an announcement anytime soon because of these two new Nintendo Switches that are coming out over the next month and a half. But after that, I think the sky is the limit with it, and I think it's time to get a bit excited about this. So at the end of the day, one thing is for sure. We talked a lot about numbers in this video, and this system right here is just absolutely crushing it. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all of this stuff, what you think of all of this sales data. When do you think the Nintendo Switch will hit 100 million units sold? Because I definitely think it's going to be in 2021. The Nintendo Switch Pro sort of dodging of the question. Do you think the wording of that was very interesting? And more importantly, why do you think that this is not like the biggest news in video gaming and whatnot? Like, it seems like the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller scratching your butthole would be a more popular story on many major websites, and I just don't get it. Like, this is actual news. This is actual interesting information. Records are being broken, yet it seems like the mainstream media, especially in the West, always sort of downplays it a bit. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel. Hopefully the snow doesn't take out my power and I don't freeze to death, because I like making videos and playing video games. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.